You walk into the grocery store with the best intentions. You head straight for the produce section because you've been told over and over again that vegetables are your shield against disease. You carefully choose broccoli that's deep green, tomatoes that are firm and red, garlic that feels heavy in your hand, kale that looks fresh and alive. You pay good money for these foods because you believe they are protecting you, because you believe they are quietly working inside your body to fight cancer, inflammation, and aging. But what if the moment you get home, turn on the stove, and start cooking, that protection begins to disappear? What if the very thing you do to make them healthy is actually stripping them of the power you paid for without you ever realizing it? Most people never question this because cooking vegetables feels safe, familiar, even virtuous. You cook them because that's what you were taught, because raw feels incomplete, because warm food feels nourishing. And yet, behind that comforting routine is a truth that shocks even people who think they eat perfectly. In kitchens everywhere, every single day, vegetables are being unknowingly sabotaged, not by junk food, not by sugar, but by heat, water, and habits that seem harmless. And once you understand what's really happening at the molecular level, you may never look at your cooking methods the same way again. As a physician who has spent decades studying nutrition, immunity, and cancer biology, I can tell you this isn't a small detail. This isn't about losing a few vitamins here and there. This is about destroying the exact compounds that tell cancer cells to slow down, to self-destruct, or to never form in the first place. And when I first realized how widespread this problem was, it was deeply unsettling because it meant that millions of people who believe they're protecting themselves are unknowingly walking around defenseless. They're eating vegetables, but they're not getting the medicine hidden inside them. Vegetables don't fight cancer because they're green. They don't work because they're low calorie or high fiber. Their real power comes from something far more specific and far more fragile. Inside plants are thousands of compounds called phytochemicals. These aren't vitamins and they aren't minerals. They're signaling molecules. They evolved to protect plants from predators, toxins, and environmental stress. And when you eat them intact, they switch on your body's own defense systems. They activate detox enzymes in your liver. They calm chronic inflammation. They interfere with cancer cell growth. Some of them even trigger damaged cells to commit apoptosis, a kind of cellular self-destruction that prevents tumors from forming. This is why vegetables like broccoli, garlic, onions, and tomatoes appear again and again in cancer research. Broccoli contains compounds that support detox pathways linked to lower rates of breast, colon, and prostate cancer. Garlic produces sulfur-based molecules that interfere with tumor development. Tomatoes contain pigments that protect DNA from oxidative damage. But here's the part most people never hear. These compounds are incredibly delicate. Heat can destroy them. Water can wash them away. Light and oxygen can deactivate them. And once they're gone, no amount of healthy eating can bring them back. This is where cooking methods quietly decide whether your vegetables become powerful medicine or expensive filler. Because not all cooking is equal, and some methods are so destructive that they can erase most of the benefit before the food ever reaches your plate. And the first method is one almost everyone believes is healthy: boiling. Boiling feels clean, it feels old-fashioned and safe. You drop vegetables into water, let them soften, drain them, and serve them. But when it comes to preserving anti-cancer compounds, boiling is one of the worst things you can do, especially to cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, kale, and Brussels sprouts. Broccoli, in particular, suffers tremendously from this method, and understanding why reveals just how much damage boiling causes. Broccoli's cancer-fighting power comes largely from a compound called glucoraphanin. On its own, glucoraphanin isn't very active. The magic happens when broccoli is chopped or chewed. That physical damage releases an enzyme called myrosinase, which converts glucoraphanin into sulforaphane. Sulforaphane is one of the most researched anti-cancer compounds ever discovered. It activates detox enzymes, reduces inflammation, interferes with cancer cell metabolism, and helps protect DNA from damage. Hundreds of studies have linked sulforaphane to reduced cancer risk, but here's the trap. Both glucoraphanin and myrosinase are water-soluble. When you boil broccoli, those compounds don't stay locked inside the vegetable, they leach out into the surrounding water. And when you drain that water and pour it down the sink, you are literally throwing away the anti-cancer engine of the food. Studies have shown that boiling broccoli for just a few minutes can destroy or remove up to half of its glucosinolates. Vitamin C, another critical antioxidant, is also heavily depleted during boiling. Think about how absurd this would sound in any other context. You wouldn't dissolve your vitamins in water and dump them out. You wouldn't brew a cup of medicinal tea and then throw away the liquid while eating the leaves. Yet this is exactly what boiling does to vegetables rich in water-soluble phytochemicals. It turns a powerful protective food into something pale, soft, and nutritionally hollow. And broccoli isn't alone. Kale, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, and even onions lose significant amounts of their protective compounds when boiled. The longer they sit in water, the more they bleed nutrients into it. By the time they reach your plate, they may look like vegetables, but the biology that made them special is largely gone. If boiling quietly drains nutrients, deep frying does something even worse. It doesn't just destroy what's good, it creates what's harmful. Deep frying exposes vegetables to extreme temperatures, often between 350 and 375 degrees Fahrenheit. At that heat, delicate phytochemicals don't stand a chance. They degrade rapidly. Vitamins break down. Antioxidants are neutralized. But the real danger isn't just what's lost, it's what's created. High temperature frying leads to the formation of toxic compounds that were never present in the raw food. One of the most notorious is acrylamide. Acrylamide forms when starchy foods like potatoes are cooked at high temperatures. It has been classified as a probable human carcinogen. That means it has enough evidence linking it to cancer risk that scientists take it seriously. Every time you eat deep-fried potatoes, you're not just consuming empty calories. You're exposing your body to a chemical associated with cancer development, but acrylamide is only part of the problem. Deep frying also creates advanced glycation end products known as AGEs. These compounds form when sugars react with proteins or fats under intense heat. AGEs drive chronic inflammation and oxidative stress, two processes that accelerate aging and increase the risk of heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. So a vegetable that once calmed inflammation becomes, through deep frying, something that actively fuels it. This is the cruel irony of deep fried vegetables. On the surface, they look like a compromise. At least I'm eating vegetables, people tell themselves. But biologically, deep frying flips the script. It strips away protective compounds and replaces them with inflammatory, potentially carcinogenic ones. The food doesn't just lose its benefit, it actively works against your health. Microwaving, on the other hand, sits in a strange gray area. Many people assume microwaves destroy nutrients, while others believe they're perfectly safe. The truth depends entirely on how you use them. And when used incorrectly, microwaving can be almost as damaging as boiling. The most common mistake people make is microwaving vegetables submerged in water. They place vegetables in a bowl, cover them with water, and microwave until soft. This is essentially boiling, just with radiation instead of a flame. And the result is the same. Water-soluble nutrients leach out. Vitamin C dissolves into the water. Glucosinolates escape from cruciferous vegetables. If you drain the water, you drain the benefits. One study comparing cooking methods found that microwaving broccoli in water led to the loss of nearly all its flavonoids, a class of antioxidants linked to cancer protection. Nearly all of them. This means that someone can microwave vegetables, believing they're preserving nutrients, while in reality, they're washing them away just as effectively as boiling. There's another layer to this problem that rarely gets discussed: plastic. Many people microwave vegetables in plastic containers or covered with plastic wrap. When plastic is heated, chemicals like BPA and phthalates can leach into food. These compounds are endocrine disruptors. They interfere with hormone signaling in the body. Hormonal imbalance is a known risk factor for cancer, such as breast and prostate cancer. So even if some nutrients survive the cooking process, they may be accompanied by chemicals that undermine hormonal health. Then there's overcooking and charring, a problem that affects roasting, grilling, and pan frying alike. These methods aren't inherently bad, but they become dangerous when heat is pushed too far. Overcooking dulls vegetables, turning bright colors into lifeless browns and grays. That color change is a visual signal that heat-sensitive nutrients have been destroyed. but charring introduces an even greater risk. When food is cooked at very high temperatures, especially over open flames or hot pans, carcinogenic compounds can form. Polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons are created when fats drip onto heat and produce smoke that coats food. Heterocyclic amines form when proteins are exposed to intense heat. While vegetables contain less fat and protein than meat, these compounds can still form, especially when vegetables are cooked with oil and charred heavily. That blackened, crispy exterior isn't harmless flavor, it's chemical damage. And while the cancer risk from charred vegetables is lower than from charred meat, the process still destroys the delicate phytochemicals that made the vegetables protective in the first place. So, the more aggressively vegetables are cooked, the more they lose the very traits that justified eating them. At this point, it becomes clear that the problem isn't vegetables. The problem is what happens to them between the cutting board and the plate. And once you see this, a deeper question emerges. If so many common cooking methods are quietly undermining health, what happens when someone believes they're eating well, but still sees declining health markers? This is exactly what happened with a patient I'll call Mark. He was in his late 50s with a strong family history of colon cancer. His father and uncle had both died from the disease. Mark believed he was doing everything right. He ate vegetables every day. He had salads for lunch and cooked vegetables with dinner. Yet he was overweight, hypertensive, and chronically inflamed. His blood tests told a story that didn't match his self-image as a healthy eater. When I asked him to describe his diet in detail, something became obvious. His salad was drowned in processed dressing loaded with sugar and industrial oils. His vegetables were boiled for 20 minutes until they were soft and gray. He was eating vegetables, but biologically, he was getting almost nothing from them. The protective compounds were gone long before they reached his body. What happened next changed everything for him, and what he learned about cooking transformed not just his numbers on a lab report, but the way he felt every single day. But to understand why those changes work so quickly, you need to understand what actually preserves the anti-cancer power of vegetables and why small shifts in the kitchen can produce outsized effects inside the body. That's where we're going next. Because once you know which methods quietly destroy nutrients, the natural question becomes unavoidable. What should you be doing instead, and why does it work so much better? What made Mark's turnaround so striking wasn't some exotic supplement or radical diet. It was something far simpler, and that's what makes this story so uncomfortable for so many people. The moment we stopped sabotaging his vegetables, his body finally responded. Once the cooking methods changed, the biology changed because his food was finally able to do what it was designed to do. And that's the part most people never realize. The body is not broken. It's responding exactly as it should to the signals it receives. When those signals are muted, washed away, or destroyed, the body can't protect itself, no matter how healthy the diet looks on paper. When Mark stopped boiling his vegetables into lifeless softness and started treating them with intention, something remarkable happened. His blood pressure dropped, not because of medication changes, but because inflammatory signals quieted down. His weight began to move because insulin signaling improved. His energy returned because his cells were no longer under constant oxidative stress. Nothing magical happened. Biology simply resumed doing what it had always been capable of doing once the right inputs were restored. This is where people often get defensive because they don't want to hear that small habits in the kitchen matter this much. It feels unfair. It feels nitpicky. But cancer prevention doesn't happen in dramatic moments. It happens in quiet, repetitive decisions. And cooking is one of the most powerful of those decisions because it can either protect phytochemicals or annihilate them before they ever reach your bloodstream. So let's talk about what actually works and why these methods preserve the anti-cancer power of vegetables instead of destroying it. Because once you understand the logic, it becomes impossible to ignore. The first principle is surprisingly simple. Vegetables do best with gentle heat and minimal water. The more aggressive the heat and the more water involved, the more nutrients are lost. This is why steaming changes everything. When vegetables are steamed, they're exposed to moist heat without being submerged. That single difference prevents water-soluble nutrients from leaching out. Vitamin C stays inside the plant. Glucosinolates remain intact, Enzymes survive long enough to do their work. Steamed vegetables cook quickly, which matters because time under heat is just as destructive as temperature. The goal isn't softness. The goal is vibrancy. Bright color is a biological signal that phytochemicals are still present. A slight crunch means cell structure hasn't completely collapsed. When vegetables turn dull, mushy, or gray, you're not just seeing overcooking, you're seeing chemical loss. Microwaving, when done correctly, actually follows this same principle. The problem isn't the microwave itself. The problem is excess water. When vegetables are microwaved with just a tablespoon or two of water covered in glass or ceramic, they essentially steam from the inside out. Cooking time is short, heat exposure is minimal, nutrients are preserved. In some studies, this method has outperformed traditional steaming in nutrient retention. But this only works when plastic is removed from the equation. Heating food in plastic introduces hormone-disrupting chemicals at the exact moment the food is being made more absorbable. This combination is especially dangerous because the same heat that softens vegetables can increase the migration of chemicals into the food. Glass and ceramic remove that risk entirely. Then there's sautéing and stir-frying, which many people assume are unhealthy by default. But when done lightly, these methods actually solve a different nutritional problem. Some vitamins and phytochemicals are fat soluble. Vitamins A, E, and K don't absorb well without fat. Lycopene, the powerful antioxidant in tomatoes, becomes far more bioavailable when heated with oil. A quick sauté over medium heat using olive oil or avocado oil can enhance absorption without destroying delicate compounds, as long as the oil doesn't smoke and the cooking time stays short. The mistake people make is pushing heat too high and cooking too long. Smoke is a warning sign. Once oil smokes, harmful compounds form and antioxidants break down. The vegetable might taste more intense, but its biology is compromised. Quick cooking preserves structure, color, and chemistry. Roasting follows the same logic. High temperature roasting feels satisfying, but it's aggressive. Lowering the temperature preserves nutrients while still allowing caramelization. At moderate heat, vegetables develop flavor without crossing into chemical damage. The difference between 375 and 450 degrees may seem small, but biologically it's enormous. Once these foundational methods are understood, the next level becomes even more interesting because certain vegetables respond to very specific handling techniques that dramatically amplify their anti-cancer potential. Broccoli is the best example. The compound that ultimately becomes sulforaphane doesn't activate instantly. It requires time. When broccoli is chopped, an enzyme reaction begins, but that reaction needs minutes, not seconds. If broccoli is cooked immediately after chopping, heat destroys the enzyme before sulforaphane can form. This is why the hack and hold method works so well. Chop the broccoli and let it sit for at least 40 minutes before cooking. During that time, sulforaphane is created and stabilized. Once formed, it becomes far more heat resistant. If waiting isn't possible, there's another workaround. Mustard powder contains the same enzyme needed to convert glucoraphanin into sulforaphane. Adding a small pinch to cooked broccoli can partially restore the conversion process. This single step can multiply the cancer-fighting potential of a meal. Garlic follows a similar rule. Its most powerful compound doesn't exist until garlic is crushed or chopped. The enzyme responsible for this conversion also needs time. If garlic goes straight into a hot pan, the enzyme is destroyed before it can work. Letting garlic rest for 10 to 15 minutes after chopping allows its protective compounds to form. After that, gentle cooking preserves much of the benefit. Tomatoes are the exception that proves the rule. Lycopene behaves differently. Heat actually increases its availability by breaking down cell walls. Cooking tomatoes with fat dramatically improves absorption. This is why traditional tomato sauces made with olive oil are associated with better cardiovascular and cancer outcomes in population studies. Here, cooking enhances medicine rather than destroying it. Once people understand these nuances, something shifts mentally. Cooking stops being about recipes and starts being about chemistry. Every method sends a signal. Every temperature choice either preserves or destroys information that your cells depend on. And suddenly, the kitchen becomes one of the most powerful environments for long-term health, not because it's complicated, but because it's intentional. At this point, many people feel a mix of relief and frustration. Relief, because they realize they don't need to overhaul their entire diet. Frustration, because they see how easily they were misled into thinking all vegetable cooking was equal. But the most important realization comes next. Because once you stop destroying phytochemicals, the body doesn't just stabilize. It begins to adapt in ways most people never expect. This is where the story goes beyond vegetables and into something deeper, because the way these compounds interact with your immune system, your metabolism, and even your genes reveals why food is not passive fuel, but active information. And once that connection becomes clear, it changes how you think about disease prevention entirely. Because the real power of anti-cancer cooking isn't just what it protects today, it's what it programs for tomorrow. Once you understand that vegetables are not passive fuel but active information, everything about food starts to feel different. You're no longer just eating to fill a plate or hit a calorie target. You're sending instructions to your cells. And those instructions determine whether your body stays calm and protected or inflamed and vulnerable. This is where the conversation shifts from cooking techniques into something far more powerful, because phytochemicals don't just act in the moment. They influence gene expression, immune surveillance, and how your body responds to damage over time. This is something cancer researchers have understood for years, but rarely explain in a way people can feel. Certain plant compounds activate genes involved in detoxification. Others switch on antioxidant pathways that neutralize free radicals before they can damage DNA. Some even tell abnormal cells to stop dividing or to self-destruct. When these signals are present consistently, day after day, the body maintains a kind of internal order. When they're missing, chaos slowly creeps in, even if everything else in a diet looks healthy. This is why two people can eat similar foods on paper and have completely different health outcomes. One person gently steams vegetables, chops broccoli ahead of time, uses olive oil wisely, and avoids excessive heat. The other boils, overcooks, microwaves in plastic, and chars everything until it's dark and crispy. The ingredients might be identical, but the biological messages are worlds apart. What's even more fascinating is how quickly the body responds when those messages change. Inflammation markers can drop in weeks. Blood vessel function improves. Immune cells become more efficient at recognizing abnormal growth. These aren't vague wellness claims. They're measurable shifts that occur when phytochemicals are allowed to survive long enough to do their job. This is also why the idea of just take a supplement fails so often. You can't replicate the complexity of whole plant chemistry in a pill. Phytochemicals work in networks. They amplify each other. Some activate enzymes that allow others to function. Others protect sensitive compounds from oxidation. Cooking methods that preserve this natural synergy create effects no isolated supplement can match. But there's a psychological trap that often appears at this stage. People hear about anti-cancer cooking and assume it requires perfection. They imagine rigid rules, endless prep time, and constant vigilance. That mindset backfires because stress itself promotes inflammation. The real goal isn't perfection, it's direction. Each meal doesn't need to be flawless. It needs to move biology in the right direction more often than not. This is where consistency quietly outperforms intensity. Steaming vegetables most of the time beats boiling them occasionally. Letting garlic rest before cooking most days beats doing it once a month. Lowering roasting temperatures consistently beats chasing perfect charred flavor. These small decisions compound, and over time, they reshape internal chemistry. One of the most overlooked benefits of preserving phytochemicals is how they interact with the gut. The gut isn't just a digestive tube. It's a major immune organ. Many plant compounds feed beneficial gut bacteria, which in turn produce anti-inflammatory metabolites. When vegetables are overcooked and stripped of these compounds, the gut microbiome loses fuel. Diversity drops, inflammation rises, and immune regulation weakens. This connection between cooking methods and gut health is profound because the gut plays a central role in cancer risk. A balanced microbiome supports immune surveillance and reduces chronic inflammation. When cooking preserves plant chemistry, it indirectly supports the gut's ability to protect the body at a systemic level. Another layer that often surprises people is how these compounds influence insulin sensitivity. Chronic inflammation and poor glucose regulation create an environment where cancer thrives. Certain phytochemicals improve insulin signaling and reduce blood sugar spikes. But again, these benefits depend on the compounds surviving preparation. When vegetables are stripped down to fiber and calories, their metabolic influence fades. This is why Mark's story matters so much. His improvements weren't random. They followed a predictable biological pattern. Once phytochemical signaling was restored, his body wasn't broken. It was simply underinformed. Once the information changed, so did the outcome. At this point, many people start asking a dangerous question. If cooking methods matter this much, does raw food always win? And the answer is more nuanced than most expect. Raw vegetables preserve certain compounds but can limit the absorption of others. Cooking isn't the enemy, aggressive cooking is. The goal is balance, not extremism. Some vegetables benefit from being eaten raw, others benefit from light cooking, some benefit from oil, some benefit from time. Understanding these patterns empowers people instead of confusing them. And empowerment is critical because fear-based nutrition advice leads to paralysis, not progress. This brings us to an uncomfortable but necessary truth. Modern kitchens are designed for speed and convenience, not for preserving biological value. High heat, excess water, plastic containers, and aggressive cooking methods are efficient. But efficiency often comes at the cost of chemistry. The good news is that efficiency and preservation don't have to be opposites. Small adjustments preserve time while protecting nutrients. And once these adjustments become habits, something interesting happens. Taste changes. People begin to prefer vegetables that are bright, crisp, and alive. Overcooked softness starts to feel unappealing. The palate adapts, just as the body does. What once felt like sacrifice begins to feel like alignment. But there's still one more layer to this story that most people never consider. Preserving anti-cancer compounds isn't just about preventing disease decades from now. It's about shaping how your body responds to stress, damage, and repair right now. These compounds influence how cells recover, how inflammation resolves, and how resilience is built over time. And that leads to a question that lingers uncomfortably once you've seen the evidence. If food can quietly protect you when prepared correctly, what happens when it's consistently prepared in ways that strip it of that protection? And more importantly, how many people are unknowingly living without the defenses they think they have? Because the answer to that question changes how you see every meal that follows. The truth is, most people have no idea how many of their meals are missing the protective power they believe they're providing. The vegetables on your plate, vibrant and full of potential, are silently robbed of their magic simply because of the cooking methods you use. It's like investing in a security system, but forgetting to activate it. The power is there, but it goes untapped, and the consequences, those subtle buildup over time. Imagine if you could flip that switch. Imagine if every meal you prepared, every vegetable you cooked could be a moment of self-defense, a small investment in your long-term health. That's what these small changes in the kitchen can do. When you consistently use cooking methods that preserve nutrients, you're not just feeding your body, you're arming it with the tools to fight back. You're giving your cells the information they need to stay strong, to heal, and to protect you against diseases like cancer, heart disease, and diabetes. The impact is not theoretical. It's practical, measurable, and life-changing. But it requires a mindset shift, a commitment to not just eating healthy, but to cooking healthy. And that means taking the time to understand how your food is prepared and how that preparation affects the biology inside your body. We can't ignore the damage done by traditional cooking habits anymore. It's not enough to simply eat your vegetables. It's not enough to buy the freshest produce if you're going to destroy the very nutrients that make them beneficial. It's the subtle, overlooked decisions that matter most. The cooking methods that people take for granted, boiling, deep frying, microwaving with too much water, overcooking, and charring, are the culprits that rob vegetables of their cancer-fighting, inflammation-reducing power. But here's the good news. The solution isn't complicated. The solution isn't about creating a diet that feels impossible to maintain. It's about understanding the science of food and using it to make small but powerful changes. It's about protecting your investment in vegetables by making the right decisions in the kitchen. Let's recap the 4 pillars of anti-cancer cooking, because these are the simple strategies that will shift your health trajectory. Steam. Don't boil. Steaming is the gentlest way to preserve nutrients. It's quick, it's effective, and it keeps your vegetables vibrant and packed with phytochemicals. Remember, bright and crisp, not dull and mushy. Waterless microwaving. A little water, a glass or ceramic bowl, and a short cook time are all you need to microwave vegetables without destroying their nutrients. This method can even outshine traditional steaming in some cases. Light sautéing or stir frying. Use healthy oils like olive oil or avocado oil and keep the cooking time short. These fats help absorb fat-soluble vitamins and protect the phytochemicals in your food. Roast at lower temperatures. Roasting doesn't need to be about charred, crispy vegetables. A slightly lower temperature allows for flavor development without the cancer-causing compounds that come from high heat. It's these simple habits that can shift your health. The real key is consistency, not perfection. Consistently choosing the right cooking methods will compound over time, improving your body's defenses and resilience against disease. But this conversation isn't just about cooking, it's about empowerment. It's about taking control of the decisions you make in the kitchen and, in turn, taking control of your health. These small decisions add up to something far greater than you might realize. You are in the driver's seat, and your body will thank you for it. As you think about your own kitchen, I challenge you to evaluate your cooking habits. How many times a week are you boiling vegetables until they lose their color and vitality? How often are you deep frying or charring them until their potential is erased? And perhaps most importantly, what changes can you make today to ensure that the food you eat serves its intended purpose to heal, to protect, and to nourish? Maybe it's as simple as switching from boiling to steaming. Maybe it's as easy as microwaving with less water or switching to a better oil for sautéing. Or perhaps it's about roasting your favorite vegetables at a lower temperature, even if it takes a little longer. Once you make these shifts, you'll start to feel the difference. You won't just be eating healthy food. You'll be consuming food that's actively working to protect you, to fight inflammation, to boost your immune system, and yes, to lower your cancer risk. This is where food becomes medicine, not because of magical supplements, but because of the raw power of plants preserved through the right preparation. But remember, it's not about perfection. It's about making a commitment to be more intentional with the way you cook and prepare your vegetables. The small changes you make in the kitchen today will lead to bigger changes in your health tomorrow. And that's the message I want to leave with you. As we wrap up this discussion on cooking methods, I want you to reflect on your own habits. What is one small change you can make to preserve the anti-cancer power of your vegetables? Share your thoughts with me in the comments below. I want to hear how this information is going to change your kitchen, your health, and your life. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more evidence-based health tips. I post new videos every week, and I'm committed to helping you take control of your health naturally. Next week, we're going to dive into another crucial topic, understanding the top mineral deficiencies that could be holding you back and how to correct them. Thank you for being here. And remember, your health is your greatest wealth. Take it seriously, cook your vegetables with care, and invest in the vibrant life you deserve.